Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're seeing this. I hope you're having a great day. I sure as hell know I am. For those that don't know, my name is Marcus G. Stonelord Exothermal, and today I'm going to be bringing to you my Tatyova Bethnic Druid Commander deck. With this, Tatyova is a 5-mana Simic Identity Merfolk Druid with Power Toughness 3/3. Has an ability of whenever a land enters the battlefield, draw a card and gain a life. With it, my personal version of Tatyova is manlands, which may sound a little bit weird, but whenever I tell you that having 32 16/16 tramplers is pretty fucking funny, especially whenever they're islands and mountains, islands and forests. With it today, I'm going to be doing things a little bit different. I didn't pull out lands and stuff like that, so I'm kind of just going to be going along with how the deck is already shuffled. With it, whenever I do the video editing for this, I'll be placing the stats and stuff right in here. So with it, the main premise of the deck is 1. Play Tatyova. 2. Play a bunch of lands, which is giving us a bunch of life and drawing us cards, and finding a way to turn our lands into creatures. With this, the main gimmick of the deck is through a card that was released this last year that is referred to as Mirror Box. Legendary rule doesn't apply. Each legendary creature gets +1/+1. And then each non-token creature that shares a name gets +1/+1 for each creature that has the same name. With it, this is the easiest way to pump our manlands, our basic manlands. This is also what allows us to get our forest and island to at most be +16/+16. Of course, this is, how am I trying to put this? No legendary rule is so fun. LOL, breaking rules and such. Yup. And being honest, there's a couple of different ways to actually do that in this deck. I love it, being honest. But for this personal deck tech, there's no major infinite combos or anything like that. It is very simple gameplay. It is a sense of play lands, turn them into creatures, and hit people for a shit ton. Mirror Box is basically one of our very few game enders in the deck. One of the ways we turn our lands into creatures is Rude Awakening, turning them into base power 1/1, 2/2, into 2/2 creatures, and then if we entwine it, we can also untap all lands. Another win con is Ormos, which prevents us from decking ourselves out. Before anyone asks, no, I don't have Laboratory Maniac, Thassa's Oracle, etc., etc. for this deck. This is my version of it in Ormos, Archive Keeper. A personal pet card of mine, and one of the ways I give trample to my manlands is Aggressive Mammoth. It's an 6-mana 8/8 trampler that gives other creatures trample. Simple as that, and it's amazing. Another thing that gives keywords, but only for our land creatures, is Tatyova, Steward of the Tides. Land creatures have flying. When a land ETBs, if it's the second one? Oh no. If I control 7 or more, then I get to have one of my lands be a 3/3. Natural Affinity, another way to turn our creatures into manlands. Multani, Yavamaya's Avatar, gets +1/+1 for each land, and it also returns 2 lands if it's in the graveyard. Multani anyway, not the lands. Nissa Who Shakes the World, doubles our green mana. Grow from the Ashes, puts 2 different lands onto the battlefield, giving us 2 Tatyova triggers. Boundless Realm gets us a shit ton of lands onto the battlefield, giving us a bunch of Tatyova triggers equal to the number of attacking creatures. Which, whenever I'm attacking, I'm going to be attacking with a bunch of creatures, either through Rampaging Balos, the actual manlands, etc., etc. Animist Awakening it gets us a bunch of lands from off the top of our deck. We're a landfall deck. We're going to have a bunch of lands onto the battlefield. And then that's going to be a bunch of Tatyova triggers. Budoka Gardener allows us to put a land onto the battlefield, giving us another Tatyova trigger. Monumentous Fall. Sack a creature, draw cards equal to its power. Tatyova is a base 3/3. That's a harmonize, basically. Yes, we're getting rid of our commander, but if we're getting rid of something that's a little bit bigger, then yeah, we can draw a bunch of cards, especially in combination. I didn't mean to do that. In combination with Hunter's Prowess. Gives +3/+3 to a creature, being Tatyova. Whenever it deals combat damage, draw that many cards. So, since those two cards came back to back, one of my personal favorite things to do is Hunter's Prowess, put it on Tatyova, swing for 6, draw how many cards I get, if I do get to draw cards, and then put a land on the battlefield, draw another card in main phase 2. Then, depending on how everything is looking, Monumentous Fall, draw an additional 6 cards. Sylvan's Awakening makes all of our creatures 2/2, trample, haste, reach, no, trample? Yeah, no trample, but 2/2, reach, haste, indestructible. Earth Surge gives our creature, each land creature +2/+2. Ensnare, return 2 lands, which will give us more land drops for Tatyova. Also allows us to swing whenever our board is built up. Scapeshift. Sack any number of lands, go search that many onto the battlefield. That's a bunch of Tatyova triggers for 4 mana. Plus, it can actually expand the amount of mana we get with Scapeshift if because we're able to search out any land. Growth Spiral, draw a card, may play an additional land this turn. If we play the land, this is a 2 mana draw 2, gain a life. Sylvan Scrying, search for a land card and put it into your hand, shuffle your library. With it, we can search any land. It doesn't say basic land type, it's 2 mana. Beast Whisperer, cast a creature spell, draw a card. Very simple. We may not have the most creatures, but we still have enough that it's worth it to actually run, in my opinion. Brainstorm, it's card selection for 1 mana. Kamal's Will, makes all of our lands 1/1s. Aquatuck's Will, 1 mana, turn something into an island. If I control a merfolk, Tatyova's a merfolk, draw a card. Opt, scry, draw a card. Perilous Forays, pay 1, sacrifice a creature, search for a basic land type, or a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped. Those are all basic lands. This allows itself to put up +1/+1 counters. Mono green bounce land in Jungle Basin, giving us an additional Tatyova trigger. Mishra's Factory, pay 1 mana, it becomes a man land till end of turn with base power 2/2. Myriad Landscape, budget players fetch land. Ghost Town, allows it to put the land into our hand during our opponent's turn. Depending on what we have on field, we can put that onto the battlefield with like the Budoka Gardener from earlier, giving us another Tatyova trigger. Simic Growth Chamber, bounce land. Rejuvenating Springs, ETBs tap unless we have 2 or more opponents. It mana fixes us in a 2-color deck. Terramorphic Expanse, budget players fetch land. Saparazin Cove, is it Cove? Scary, not Saparazin Scary. ETBs with 2 counters on it, remove a counter, add 2 blue of mana to it. Whenever it has no counters on it, sacrifice it. Being honest, it ain't the biggest thing, not being able to get it back, but there is a little bit of synergy with it being sacrificed. Also, one thing I forgot to mention earlier, Mirror Box is the only artifact I run in the deck. Evolving Wilds, budget fetch land. Ghost Quarters, sacrifice it, destroy land, go search for, the owner of that land go searches for a basic land type. Well, if I use this on myself, play it, sacrifice it, destroy land, I'm getting 2 triggers and 2 triggers of Tatyova. Sylvanite Temple, ETB's tapped, tap add a blue, or I can tap sacrifice it, add double blue. Rogue's Passage, make stuff unblockable. Coral Atoll, Mono Blue Bounce Land, Thespian Sage. It becomes a target land that I would prefer, being honest. Blighted Cataract, sacrifice it, draw 2 cards. MDFC, I honestly don't remember what this card does. I just know it's decent enough for me to run it. Boghead Recovery, the second MDFC, returns target card from graveyard to our hand. With it, this is one of like the break glass if emergency-esque cards because of the fact it is very simple to consistently draw a shit ton of cards, having to discard them. I think there's been a total of 1 time where I've actually messed up and got something else that wasn't my win con because I thought it was in my deck. These next 3 cards are more or less just a package that works surprisingly well into this deck. Is Psychic Spiral. Shuffle our cards from our graveyard into our deck, and then we mill an opponent for that number. Court of Cunning. Any number of players may, or you may have any number of players mill, and then if Monarch, I believe it's 14? No, 10. And whenever not the Monarch, it's 2. Psychic Corrosion. Whenever I draw a card, target player puts the top 2 of their library into the graveyard. With Tatyova, we draw a shit ton in this deck. Whenever I brought up that the sacrificing and destroying of our own lands didn't matter as much, main reason I said that is Titania Proctor of Argoth. Whenever a land enters the graveyard from the battlefield from our control, we get a 5/3 green elemental token. Reflection of Letjara. Choose a creature type. Whenever we do one of that creature type, copy the spell. Rune Crab. This thing is absurdly busted, especially in this deck. With how much land we play, this thing can get out of control. In one of my more friendly games, I think this card single-handedly milling my opponents for 42 or something like that. Rampaging Baloth. Landfall, 4/4 green beast. Territorial Scythecat. Landfall. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. It also has trample. This thing can get absurdly huge. Simic Ascendancy. Alternative win con in the game, and also enacts as a mana dump just in case things go a little bit sour for us. Fight Rigging. Hideaway 5, and then puts +1/+1 counters on Tatyova. We can play it whenever we have power 7 or greater. Hydra's Growth. Put a +1/+1 counter at the beginning of my upkeep. Double the number of counters on it. One of the things I ended up doing with this deck is I ended up also throwing in a minor +1/+1 counter package, just in case I needed to start to swing with Tatyova, keep it back as a blocker, because at certain points the deck can enact quote-unquote a little slow, or can be in a more vulnerable position because of being able to be so reliant on our landfall. Weaver of Currents, 3 mana, adds 2. Avatar of Growth searches 2 lands, giving us 2 land triggers. Irenicus' Vile Duplication lets us create a copy of Tatyova because it doesn't, the copy is not legendary, and it also has flying. Clone Legion. For each creature target player controls, I may create a copy of it. This can get absurd, especially whenever I have a good number of my other lands onto the field. Or not lands, clones onto the battlefield that are Tatyovas. Double major. Create a copy of target creature. If it's legendary, the copy is not legendary. This is a 2-mana Tatyova. Muogen of Cryptic Dreams. Remove the indestructible counter. I get 3 permanents that are copies of whatever target I want. Altered Ego. Enters has a copy of target creature, except it has X +1/+1 counters on it. This spell can't be countered. Progenitor Mimic. At the beginning of upkeep, if Progenitor Mimic isn't a copy of any creature, I may have it become a copy of a creature. Tameo Safekeeping. This card grants indestructible to our creature. Ugh. A fun card I wanted to put into the deck that I don't have a place elsewhere for. Unexpected result. Shuffle my library, reveal the top card. Depending on what it is, I either get to play it for free, add it to my hand, or if it's a land, put it on the battlefield and add unexpected result back to hand. Urban Evolution. Draw 3, may play an additional card for turn. Gush. Return 2 islands to hand, draw 2. Gretchen Titchwaylow. 2 mana. Has the activated ability of 2 Simic colors. 2 and Simic colors. Draw a card, may play an additional land this turn. Dreamscape Artist. Discard a card, sacrifice a creature, go put 2 basic lands, or is it basic lands? Yeah, 2 basic lands onto the battlefield, giving us 2 Tatyova triggers. Risen Reef. When it ETBs or another elemental ETBs, I may look at the top 3, reveal land, put it onto the battlefield. Kefnet the Mindful. Flying indestructible, can't attack unless I have 7 or more lands. Pay 3, draw a card, then I may return a land permanent to its owner's hand. Well, I'm going to be returning my own land, putting it back onto the battlefield, drawing an additional card, and gaining a life. Kuda, the Boundless Sky. As flying, whenever it dies, I'm going to be searching for 2 basic lands. 3 lands, sorry, not basic lands. Abundance. Whenever I would draw a card, I may choose land or non-land, and then I reveal from the top till I reveal one of the chosen. And then the last card of this deck is Court of Bounty. At the beginning of my upkeep, I may put a land onto the battlefield. If I'm the Monarch, I get to put a land or a creature onto the battlefield. I don't really care about being the Monarch for it unless I have the Court of Cunning out. But besides that, I just want the additional land onto the battlefield, giving me another Tatyova trigger. Either or, that's what I have for my Tatyova mainland deck. With it, Icy Prophet, thank you for coming by the stream. I hope you have a great rest of your day, homie. With it, I also hope you check out my other deck techs on my YouTube. Link to it is going to be in my on my Twitch. It'll have my my YouTube, my Instagram, and what was the last one? I know it has those 2. So if you ever want updates like that, check out the other deck tags, whatever you would like. That's where you would find it. If you don't see those links, then what I would recommend doing is looking up my my Twitch tag for Instagram and YouTube, because there will be the exact same thing, found at Real Exothermal. Either or, I hope you have a great rest of your day, homie. Hopefully I get to see you again.